Hare Krishna. People often talk of Muslim contribution to Indian life and culture like many other stereotype statement. This statement is often mechanically repeated. In medieval history or contemporary politics, the stock phase of a Muslim contribution is often trotted out in an impromptu discussion or in articles and books to make the listeners or readers look small and humbled and give the speaker a sense of elation and triumph on having scored a point against his or her opponents. On the contrary, it should be the other way around. Namely, if there is anything called Muslim contribution exists in this world, it has only brought shame and stigma not only to India but to humanity as a whole. This is yet another aspect and instance of how Bharatiya history has been turned topsy-turvy during India's 1235 years long subjugation by alien powers. It unfortunately illustrates how something ignoble is being paraded of something very glorious. In view of its importance and persistence, let us subject this dogmatic claim of a Muslim contribution to a close scrutiny. The claims of a Muslim contribution to Bharatiya culture is obviously based on the invasion and rule over India by the host of aliens like Arabs, Turks, Iranians, Afghans, Abyssinians, Kazakhs and Uzbeks over a period of nearly 1235 years, from Muhammad bin Qasim to Bahadur Shah Jafar. What contribution could barbarian and illiterate intruders and invaders like Muhammad bin Qasim, Muhammad Ghazini, Muhammad Ghori, Taimurlan, Babur, Nadir Shah, Ahmad Shah Abdali have made? Was looting Bharat, ravaging and demolition of its mansions, desecration of its temples and converting them into tombs and mosques, raping its women, kidnapping its boys and girls for sale as slaves abroad, and massacring men by the hundreds any contribution? Or was it retribution? Why did Bharatiya women commit Johar almost at every Muslim invasion? Was it just for fun? These invaders were all unwanted and unwelcome guests from whom the Hindus wanted to throw out. Let us take an example from ordinary civic life. Can it be argued that a gang of dacoits invading the peaceful life of a well-knit family or village contributes something very precious to their civic life by looting all their wealth, torturing the male folk, raping the women, abducting the girls, selling the boys and massacring all and the sundry? It should be clear from the above instance that the Muslim invaders from alien lands who pushed their way into India by strong arm methods by employing hordes of hooligans, plunderers and barbarians were never wanted in India. They ruled Bharat in every way and reduced it to a land of slums, mud hovels, gaping ruins and abject poverty. Al-Biruni, a very famous historian, who is considered as the most famous Muslim chronicler and who accompanied the invader Muhammad Ghazini, has written that Ghazini ground to dust the life of the Hindus and scattered it to the winds. Bharat had never wanted these intruders and invaders. Bharat fervently prayed for deliverance from their atrocities, and therefore Bharatiyas looked upon an occasional Rana Pratap or Chhatrapati Shivaji as a godsend and a badly needed savior. That is, so far as the invaders are concerned. It is then argued that since a long line of these alien invaders left their progeny and henchmen and Hindu converts to Islam to settle in India, at least they must be credited with having made some contribution to Bharatiya culture. But even this claim is unjustified. As is clear from recorded history, the Muslim sovereign and his alien courtiers or courtiers and soldiery never considered themselves Bharatiyas. They continued to proudly designate themselves as Iranians, Turks, Arabs, Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Afghans and Abyssinians, and despise even Bharat-born or convert Muslims as mere Hindustanis. So, though they were physically settled in Bharat, psychologically they remained sworn to plunder and impoverish Bharat. They remitted its wealth abroad, married in their own lands, and went for pilgrimage outside India. In India, they rise to sainthood. Murderers who were a terror to Hindus. This is amazing. Let us take an illustration from civic life to see whether setting in Bharat automatically ensures honored citizenship. Suppose a gang of dacoits, instead of raiding a village from a distance base and scurrying away with the loot, considers it safe and convenient enough to live in the village itself and continue its nefarious activities from closure quarters. Will that gang be considered a valuable and honorable addition to the village population? And will it be presented a welcome address by the village civic body? So this should make it clear that the criterion is not physical settlement but behavior and thinking. When medieval Muslim sovereigns from Qutbuddin Aibak 1206 AD to Bahadur Shah Jafar 1858 AD continued to look upon the overwhelming majority of Bharatiyas as mean riches whose cows must be slaughtered, temples must be destroyed, and wealth looted, they cannot be considered Indian merely because they settle in India. The crucial question is, settle for what purpose? Settle, but settle for what purpose? In this connection, it may be noted that the Sakas and Huns also came as invaders, but they so completely merged with Indians that today there is no Sakas or Huns. Contrastingly or dangerously, medieval Muslims continued to be aliens. Till the very end of Muslim rule in Bharat, the Muslim sovereign, his courtiers, and the converts to Islam, far from Indianizing themselves, took every care to scrupulously and jealously guard and retain their alien identity in their dress, manners, names, religion, script, speech, and outlook. Such alienation struck such deep roots that it continues even to this present day. In this sense, Islam in Bharat, ceasing to be a religion, took the form of politics of an Iranian-Turkish domination over Bharat. This alienation continues undiluted to our own day, was automatically illustrated by their asking for a separate homeland and cutting away two pieces of India in the name of Islam in 1947. This could well be called a contributions of Islam to Arabia, Iran and Turkey, but a disservice and betrayal to Bharat. Far from loving the people and culture of Hindustan, the medieval Muslim junta continued to deeply hate the Hindus. This is vividly illustrated in almost each one of the hundreds of medieval Muslim chronicles by the fact that everywhere in them, the people of Bharat, called by the specific name Hindus, are designated in medieval Muslim chronicles in most vile, contemptuous and abusive terms like scoundrels, thieves, robbers, thugs, slaves, prostitutes, dancing girls and infidels. This fact has been carefully hidden from the public by most historians who have written curricular textbooks. Is such vile abuse flung at the vast majority of the residents of a victimized host country a contribution to its culture? Can the invidious jizya tax, which squeezed money out of the Hindus as a price for escape from the principle that accept Islam or get killed by torture threat, be called a contribution of Islam to Indian culture? It was, on the other hand, a compulsory contribution extracted from Hindus to nurture a parasitic alien graft on Bharatiya culture. During Muslim rule, Hindus were forced to wear a collar patch so that no Muslim may greet or wish him or show him even ordinary courtesy while receiving him. Can this be called a Muslim contribution to Bharata culture? On the other hand, it was the very negation of culture in denying a Hindu the common courtesy which an ordinary man extends to another. The Hindus were looked upon during Muslim rule as a dog or a swine. It is sometimes asserted that if nothing else, the Muslims at least made a grand scriptural contribution to India by building magnificent tombs, forts, mosques, palaces, bridges, and canals. Even this assertion is baseless because the Muslims did not build a single tomb or mosque in Bharat during medieval times. All the medieval tombs, mosques, forts, palaces, bridges, and roads falsely ascribed to this or that sultan or courtier are actually usurped Hindu constructions put to Muslim use. Muslims, on the other hand, destroyed a very vast number of magnificent Hindu constructions such as river ghats, canals, bridges, palaces, temples, mansions, and forts. The few which survived were misused by them as tombs and mosques. Some others have been reduced to gaping and tottering ruins or rubble heaps. Here again we see how history has been turned completely inside out or upside down because Muslims, far from building anything in Bharat, either destroyed or usurped Hindu buildings and tampered or tinkered with them by disfiguring and desecrating and ravaging them and claiming false authorship. Every visitor to medieval buildings and historic spots must remember one very important maxim that their construction is all Hindus, while destruction is all Muslims. If it is in the field of dance and music that Muslims are believed to have made some contribution to Indian culture, that too is a baseless concept. In Hindu tradition, dance and music were very sacred religious arts. During Muslim rule, they were dragged to brothels and drinking bouts at court. So, if anything, dance and music were denigrated and debased to such abysmal depths that today every householder is afraid to send his daughters and sisters or even boys to learn dancing and music. People are apt to point out to a large number of Muslims who are good musicians as proof of a Muslim contribution to music. Such people often forget, firstly, that the tunes and melodies they sing are all of immemorial Hindu origin and antiquity. Secondly, the comparatively large number of Muslims found among musicians is because their forefathers were patronized by the Muslims courts in India to play or sing to the accompaniment of drunken court revelries. Thirdly, all the so-called Muslim musicians are Hindu converts in a Muslim garb. So even in music and dancing, medieval Muslim touch degraded these sacred and highly developed Bharatiya arts. Fourthly, while masters of dance and music led saintly life in ancient Bharat, under medieval Muslim rule, they were all considered degenerate folk. People sometimes foolishly talk of Mughal gardens. This term itself implies that the other Muslim races who preceded them never knew anything of gardening. If, on the other hand, it is contended that all Muslim invaders, starting from Muhammad bin Qasim, were fond of gardens, then the term Mughal garden is obviously a misnomer. For the proper term would be Islamic gardens or Muslim gardens, but not Mughal gardens. Here it must be realized that all Muslim invaders came from desert lands, where even to get a mug full of drinking water, one had to walk for miles through parched desert country. Could such people lay gardens? Secondly, it has now been proved that all historic sites from the Nisat and Shalimar in Kashmir to Gulbarga, Bijapur and Bihar are usurped Hindu constructions falsely ascribed to this or that sultan or courtier. If those buildings are of Hindu origin, it automatically follows that the gardens in front of them are Hindu Bharatiya gardens and not Mughal or Muslim gardens. So we see how even in ascribing gardens to Muslims, history has been turned completely upside down. A graphic proof of this is found on page number 403, volume 1 of Shah Jahan's official chronicle, in which he admits that the Taj Mahal is Raja Man Singh's mansion, which when taken over for Mumtaz's burial was set amidst a majestic lush garden. Who is saying? Shah Jahan himself. Coming to modern times, we find that Kashmir has become a problem state because of its Muslim majority. East Bengal and Punjab were cut away from India on the ground of their Muslim majority. The Aligarh Muslim University is known to be a breeding ground of separatist movements. To assert that Muslim invasions of Bharat made a remarkable contribution to Bharatiya Hindu life and culture, for which Hindus should be grateful, is as absurd as asserting that Napoleon and Hitler, by invading Russia, yearned to enrich Soviet life. If invaders and freebooters are to be considered contributors to the culture of their victims, history must condemn Great Britain and Russia for foiling Napoleon's and Hitler's invasion plans. Not only in India, but even in Arabia itself, where Islam made its first subversion, Islam and culture have proved to be antonyms of each other. Wherever Islam get crushed, it forced the local people to hate and forget their ancient culture. Thus, even Arabian history begins with the words that Arabia was a land lost in turmoil before the appearance of Islam. You see? Likewise, Iranians, Turks, Afghans, Egyptians, Algerians, Moroccans, and the millions of Indians who were converted to Islam by the torch and sword have been made to feel so ashamed of their ancient civilization that they want to wipe them out of memory and history, and assert that before Islam the world was all dark. Can a system which has thrived only on conversions through torture and terror lay any claim to the word culture? It's bizarre. Considering all this, it is unhistorical to talk of any Muslim contribution to Bharat. Not that there has been no impact. There has been a tremendous Muslim impact, but it certainly cannot be called a contribution. It has been an unmitigated disaster and catastrophe. It has resulted in the destruction of Bharat's high morality and discipline, and utter economic impoverishment. That impact has weakened Indian life and changed its genius and character so much as to tear it away from its Vedic and Sanskrit moorings and push it adrift halfway towards Mecca and Medina. Bharat would have been much better off and far more happy, strong and united but for the medieval Muslim contribution. That contribution, if it can be so called, was thrust, grafted and implanted on an unwilling, remonstrating and resisting Bharat. As such, it was unwanted and most unwelcome. Bharat could very well do without it, and it might take years and years of hard labor to wipe off its detrimental effects. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for watching my videos. Please like and subscribe this channel. Thank you very much.